Hi, my name is Zoe Bowering. I got assigned Senegal for my country presentation, and I hope you enjoy. The first thing I'll be discussing is societal issues within this country. First is excessive force used by people of power. The president and people within the government were sending out police forces into the public to try and oppress journalists and other people spreading their viewpoints on what the society was going through at the time. This led to over brutality of police, leading to many deaths as well as people being harmed. There was limitations of media due to this as well. Things such as TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter were restricted, and on June 4th, the government extended the restrictions to mobile internet access. This restricted journalists and other activists from spreading words on any events that were occurring within the country as well. Another societal issue is the abuse of the Taliban children in boarding schools. In these schools, the Taliban children were forced to go out and beg daily for money, food, rice, or sugar. There was typically a begging quota put into place, and it was reinforced with beatings. Many of these children are housed in unfinished homes with no water, electricity, or sanitation. This leads to both safety and health issues. Along with this, children from these schools are exploited into human trafficking eventually. The last societal issue I'll be discussing on this slide is sexual and gender-based violence. Women from this country faced high levels of sexual and gender-based violence, including sexual exploitation, harassment, and abuse by teachers and school officials, as well as rape and sexual abuse by other students. The government has still yet to accept the scale of which this occurs and therefore has taken no action to fix any of these issues. The societal issues discussed on the previous slide really slide into the political issues that I'll be discussing now. As said before, where there was lots of police brutality within people speaking out about how they felt, it was the same with political opponents that went against President Sall. They were being arrested in mass numbers so that nobody could compare to him or go up against him. This was all a precursor to President Sall trying to extend his presidency and push the presidential election to 2025. This extension led the country into a political and constitutional crisis, and due to this, people showed up for mass demonstrations, which resulted in more police brutality. The Constitutional Council did come together eventually and denied Sall the extension of presidency and required him to set a date for a presidential election. In 2024, Bassirou Diomaye Faye became the new president. He was released from prison just 10 days before the election and follows the same beliefs as Ousmane Sonko. They have promised the people of Senegal a complete break from how they have been governed now for years. The one thing I do want to point out in the political issues is a democratic backslide. For a country to have a democratic backslide, they must be considered a stable democracy, then experience a shift or repressive government with less public political participation. It is safe to say that Senegal did experience this with a president like Sall. Regardless, Senegal is one of the most stable countries, though, in Africa. When looking at the economy of Senegal, it's important to point out that this country did have a record high inflation rate of 9.7 in 2022. Currently, that inflation has declined to 5.9%. Along with this, it is a really good place for import and export, especially with their capital. Due to COVID, though, this was greatly impacted, and their economy took a huge hit when COVID-19 had the outbreak. Due to COVID-19, there was a big drop in economic activity. Obviously, in order to balance GDP, imports had to be reduced severely, and Senegal is still currently trying to play catch up basically on balancing those GDP levels. Along with this, many people worked in hospitality and restaurants due to the high tourist rate. COVID-19 greatly reduced travel, and many canceled their trips ahead of time, leaving people without jobs. Senegal does have a small and fragile industrial sector. This is due to the lack of large enterprises, insufficient borrowing capacity, and the concentration on small number of exportable products. While this is all said, Senegal has the base of what can become a thriving industrial economy. When looking at environmental issues within Senegal, obviously climate change has impacts in the country, but the more severe one is with inadequate waste collection systems. Households resort to dumping their trash in the streets or burning it. This leads to toxins going into the air. It has severe air, soil, and water pollution with devastating consequences on people's health and on the environment. At home, many are further exposed to toxins coming from the use of plastic in cooking and from charcoal burned inside of the rooms. The country of Senegal does have a high burden of both communicable and non-communicable diseases. These are such as malaria, tuberculosis, HIV, and AIDS. There are some coverage rates of vaccinations in children, and Senegal has historically been fairly high with their insurance coverage, although the country did experience a dip in coverage in around 2020 and 21. Senegal improved its child survival rates between 2015 and 2021. However, it is not yet meeting the SDG targets of neonatal or under 5 mortality rates. Senegal's locational advantage are the fact that it is located on the westernmost point of Africa. This provides easy access to the Atlantic Ocean and making it a natural gateway for the European market. The capital, Dakar, is a regional hub for cargo and transportation, specifically for air travel with connections to Europe, Middle East, and North America. This delivers the country with an efficient trade route for good to come in and out of the country. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and here are my sources.